Story 1. I am against it for many reasons, the main one being that it was not even Argentina's bailout. It was not to help the average Argentine. I would be less bothered by that because people are people and helping them is good. It was a bailout of several United States corporations that had heavily invested in Argentina and had been donors to Donald Trump. The only people it helps are men with yachts who will get bigger yachts, and that makes me angry as hell. Story 2. Honestly, I think it's funny. Like, so much for America first, right? Story 3. I don't care about it with regard to the shutdown. It is galling that we eliminated food and disease prevention programs abroad, which could cost millions of lives, and are now spending the same amount or more to bail out a far wealthier country purely because the president likes the person in charge. Story 4. That money could be put to better use here in the United States. Story 5. I am not a United States citizen, but the requirement that Milei I's party must win the midterm elections in order to receive the funding is a red flag. It smacks of bribery and election interference, but on the other hand, the United States has historically meddled in many South American elections. Story 6. I don't think the majority of Americans even know this transpired. Obviously, supporters of Make America Great Again are silent. Story 7. It is a bribe to get Milei I elected again. The bailout is contingent on his winning re-election. He is bribing an entire country to vote the way he wants. Story 8. I am starting to think this regime cannot last very long with this level of aggressive stupidity. Story 9. My Make America Great Again colleague, who voted for Trump because she believes the United States should not be spending money on other countries, had no idea this was happening. Story 10. America First means giving $40 billion to Trump's wealthy friends who own the Argentine economy. It is the largest bribe in history. Story 11. There is always money to do things like kill brown people overseas, prop up beneficial regimes, and supply allies, but when it comes to alleviating student loan debt or providing a bare minimum level of healthcare, there is supposedly no money, or it is too expensive, or funding runs out. Remind me again how long the United States was in Afghanistan and how much money was spent there. Also, how many of the countries to which the United States gives aid provide free or heavily subsidized schooling and healthcare to their citizens, in addition to significant worker and consumer protections? Story 12. It's not a bailout for Argentina. It primarily benefits wealthy hedge fund investors. This is unfair. Story 13. For a political party that is anti-bailout, favors less government intrusion, and is so pro-America, the Republicans have a funny way of sticking to their convictions. The farmers are my favorite. Uncle Donnie, we voted for you because you always tell the truth and we're going to help American farmers. But now your tariffs, which have historically failed, are destroying our livelihood. Please come bail us out because we believe in less government. Story 14. I find it strange that Nazis fled there, and now people accused of being Nazis are funneling money to the same place. Story 15. I am glad we are doing it and expanding a military airbase in Idaho for the Sharia law Qatari. America Third is what we voted for. Sarcasm. Story 16. I would care less if it were an actual bailout for Argentina. In reality, it is a bailout for vulture capitalist funds that bought the bad debt. Everything this administration does is for the sole benefit of the 1%. Story 17. Argentina is not being bailed out. Hedge funds that gambled on the country are. Argentine citizens will not see a penny of the bailout. Story 18. Don't forget that China has stopped buying soybeans from United States farmers. While Argentina dropped prices and China is buying from them now. Trump bails out Argentina to prop up a head of state aligned with the Make America Great Again movement, and at the same time his cronies, Treasury Secretary Bessent's buddies, among others, will make a lot of money. Story 19. Gosh, you were so close to figuring this out. What does Milei I have in common with the government officials who are sending him money? Story 20. Trump is getting a few golf courses down there, so that is something. Story 21. I see some potential value in attempting to offset Chinese influence in the area. However, we can all see how effective it has been. If that was the goal, it failed badly. If not, what on earth are they thinking? Story 22. No Argentinian is seeing any of that money. It is just being recirculated among billionaires and oligarchs. Story 23. It is theft, plain and simple. Trump has no right to steal 40 billion from the American people while claiming there is no money for us. Story 24. I am Argentinian. Thank you very much. Our farmers have been doing very well selling soybeans and beef to China. This was a nice Navidad present. Keep it coming. Story 25. This is a bailout for billionaire Trump buddies who made bad investments in Argentina, not for the country. Like everything with Republicans, it is a grift to help the kakistocrats. Story 26. It is a currency swap, not just handing them money. This should help strengthen the peso. It will not be costless in the immediate term because the peso has higher inflation, but assuming the government stays stable and does not return to Peronist leadership, this should be a win. It will increase the chances that Argentina stays solvent, weathers its slow-burning currency crisis, and eventually repays other outstanding loans with the United States as a major backer. In other words, by signaling to the markets that the United States is supporting the currency, pressure on the peso will ease, and the arrangement should ultimately generate returns for the United States, indirectly through International Monetary Fund loan repayments. Story 27. Argentina will pay and then some. Argentina is set to be the United States' only strategic ally in the region, and it guarantees cooperation on Antarctic issues. This is completely a geopolitical play. The United States does not want Kirchnerism back because it is pro-Russia and pro-China, and prefers Milei's government or allied groups in power. The funds will help stabilize the finances of the Central Bank of Argentina. Story 28. That it is based on Trump's intent to manipulate the political situation there makes it obscene. Political insiders' financial gains from it probably make it illegal. This adds to cuts to the safety net in this country. Story 29. It is a stupid waste of money. Argentina allowed itself to be deceived by a jackass with a chainsaw. Why the fuck are we footing the bill, right? Trump's corrupt ass wants to give his billionaire friend a bailout. Story 30. It's a slap in the face and more evidence that the Trump regime doesn't care about making America great, only propping up other right-wing groups. The Trump crime family is despicable. Story 31. Many Americans do not want to talk about this issue and seem to tolerate repeated abuses by Trump. We found that the United States is not as formidable in resistance as some fear. Many citizens appear to accept or even request stronger measures from their leader. Story 32. I am angry that we have money for rich bankers but not for the average person's healthcare. Story 33. Everything this administration does is such a shitshow. This is just one more straw on the camel's back. Most of the money will wind up funneled back to Trump and his oligarchs. I seriously doubt much money will actually end up in Argentina. Story 34. He bailed out super wealthy United States investors who bought Argentine debt. So much for helping average Americans afford gas and groceries. Story 35. That bailout could have paid off all our medical debt and still been roughly the same amount. Story 36. Blatant election meddling occurs while tax-paying American citizens pay more for healthcare and essential items. Supporters of Make America Great Again still do not realize they have been deceived. Story 37. It is galling that people who are constantly chomping at the bit to cut education, Social Security, healthcare, social services, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, and almost anything that benefits the American public will always find money to prop up billionaires and corporations. That said, if we in the United States can actually help the people of Argentina, I support it. I suspect the money will be vacuumed up by elites while they undermine the Argentine economy. That is just kind of Donald Trump style. No matter what happens, I wish the people of Argentina well. Story 38. Capitalists are doing capitalism. Handouts go to the rich. Everyone else faces austerity. Story 39. It is utter bullshit. As to why he is doing it, I assume it is because he knows he has ruined relations with China and needs someone to obtain rare earth minerals. Story 40. Did the United States Congress authorize and appropriate these funds for this use? If not, then it is almost certainly illegal for the executive branch to be doing this. One thing people should know about governmental structure in the United States is that Congress is supposed to have the power of the purse. Are we in a dystopian hell where the law does not matter at all right now? Yes. This adds to the pile of other illegal actions this administration takes daily. But this is not how things are supposed to work. It is also a blatantly terrible idea and almost certainly harms the United States. It may help Argentina temporarily, we will see long-term, but China is benefiting. I understand this is not a straight cash gift. We are doing a peso to dollar exchange, so there is some nuance. Still, it is insane that we are doing this and simultaneously Argentina is removing tariffs on its own soybeans, essentially paying $40 billion to divert our soybean trade to another country. It will almost assuredly never come back. Story 41. Argentina loves Nazis. Story 42. United States here. When that goofy dumbass was elected in 2023, one of the first things he said was that he was moving Argentina to a crypto-backed currency. Every person with a lick of common sense said that this was going to destroy their economy and bankrupt the country. It did not even take 2 years. Cryptocurrency is a scam, no different than non-fungible tokens or artificial intelligence tools. The same people support all of them. Story 43. I am a citizen of the United States. I approve. What about tens of billions for Viktor Orban to make Hungary great? And some under the table for Putin when they all meet in a few weeks. The sooner the whole thing blows up, the better. Story 44. It's only there to prop up a Trump-friendly libertarian government because billionaires want us to do the same with ours. Story 45. The United States appears to be run by corrupt politicians. Story 46. It is an impeachable offense. We are clearly buying their election. Of course, nothing will happen. Story 47. Remember just a few years ago when there was a substantial push for one of the most widespread student loan forgiveness programs and conservatives lost their goddamn minds? The United States economy was doing much better during those years when neighbors had real spending power because monthly student loan payments were put on hold. If only the billionaires who hold the reins and profit by denying the American people's right to an affordable education were a foreign government. Story 48. United States citizens' money is being flushed down the toilet while we are already suffering as oligarchs take our money and services to secure tax breaks. Story 49. It is about protecting the business interests of American billionaires in Argentina and possibly receiving gifts in return. Expect an announcement next year about a Trump resort in Argentina. It is more socialism for the rich. Story 50. $40 billion could fund the United States National Park Service at current levels for over 10 years. We can't even pay our federal workers because we are shut down, but somehow we can scrounge up that amount to give to more oligarchs in a different country. I never want to hear Republicans talk about fiscal responsibility or saving money again. Story 51. I thought we were supposed to get Dogecoin refund checks. So much for that, I guess. Story 52. Constant foreign aid to Israel should never happen. Story 53. The new boss is the same as the old boss. There is always money for political goals and efforts, but never for the people who need it. Story 54. United States citizen. Trump will be able to get away with anything as long as he keeps up the deportations. If not, they will maintain the appearance of deportations with more dumb social media memes. Story 55. It is both hilarious and fucked up. We cannot fund our own goddamn government, but we somehow have $40 billion to give to Argentina? Story 56. It is just money we will never see anyway, so who really cares? Story 57. The math comes out to each American sending $116 to Argentina, which, to be honest, is not even a week's worth of groceries for my household, so it is not that big of a deal. However, I do not like it because I want the government to become ultra-fiscally conservative, spending only on the most essential things until we pay off the national debt. I had such high hopes for Dogecoin. I am an engineer. Many of my colleagues used to work on government contracts. They had a clause requiring that if the money allocated for a project was not spent, it disappeared, and the project's budget might even shrink. Everyone was hyper-incentivized to waste government money, so I know the government is bad at spending. I hope Dogecoin would fix those sorts of problems, but it only angered people, and the amount saved was a drop in the bucket compared to what the big beautiful bill added. Adding this Argentina payment on top continues that trend. I remember history class where examples of cash flowing in or out caused all sorts of problems, such as in America with Andrew Jackson, in Hawaii, in China, and in post-World War I Germany and France. If we adopted a 30-year plan to pay everything back, that would be great. Story 58. Neither. If people think that none of that money is being pocketed by Donald Trump and his friends, they have not been paying attention. The whole goal of this administration is to tear everything down and loot the country. Story 59. All foreign aid from the United States should stop at least until we can fix our own problems. Story 60. It is clear to me that Republicans will support their candidate until it kills us all, so I can only laugh. I am much more financially secure than the vast majority of Republicans, so I am just waiting them out. I can afford the huge healthcare premiums that you voted for. Can you? I spent the last 20 years frantically trying to save conservatives from themselves, but now I am going to step back and let it happen. Story 61. It is just item number 9697549025485418535 that points to the administration's America First hypocrisy. This is, after all, the Dogecoin cuts that nixed funding to help poor countries feed their populations, prevent disease, and reduce poverty. But since Miley I is choking neck-deep in Trump's tiny dingling, here is a bailout for a corruptly run country that is really designed to help the rich get richer. Pretty typical shit these days. Story 62. Apparently the bailout has many intermediaries. How much reach does it have in Argentina? Story 63. There is not enough money to pay government salaries and to fund food assistance, but we have $40 billion to allocate to a currency exchange. It is rather enraging. Story 64. It is absurd, especially in light of soybeans from Argentina replacing the United States crop. We have to pay for 2 bailouts instead of 1. Great America First. Story 65. If it were not for the fact that Trump's associates invested in Argentine bonds, and that the move was primarily to back up their investment, I would not hate it. Investing in other countries can be a strong strategic move. If $40 billion in currency swaps saves Argentina's currency and economy, we will have gained a strong ally at virtually no cost. I do not know enough about the situation to say whether that will save them, and I wish I had a government I could trust to make good decisions, but it is the kind of soft power move we used to be good at. Story 66. I am not a United States citizen, nor am I Argentinian, but Trump's idiocy has just handed the Peronists the election. May God save Argentina, for no one else can. Story 67. I am ashamed as an American of everything over the last 9 months. Story 68. Argentina has defaulted on every loan ever extended to it. Just chew on that for a while. Story 69. It is almost the same amount as the United States Agency for International Development's reduction from $40 billion to $35 billion. So it was good that we cut the agency's budget. Story 70. I shouldn't have to pay for their bailout when we are asked to do without, because that means we end up paying through our taxes. Story 71. Private equity was behind this bailout, and the upper tier of the investor class will benefit the most. Same as always, neoliberal late-stage capitalism eats itself. Story 72. I think Miley I charged Trump $20 billion for a blowjob, and the extra $20 billion was a tip for swallowing. It would not be the first time the dipstick in chief paid for services. I just hate that my taxes went to this. Story 73. $20 billion would be provided in a currency swap in which Argentina would repay the United States with interest. The United States conducts such swaps through the Exchange Stabilization Fund, administered by the United States Department of the Treasury, which has an existing $220 billion budget for these activities. The other $20 billion would come from private investment and from sovereign wealth funds. It does not appear, at least from what I have read, to be a direct investment by United States taxpayers. Story 74. I don't understand why Americans don't see that this, like so much of what he does, is a scheme to give Trump a large commission. Story 75. He sent enough money that technically each person could get a minimum of $300 United States dollars in a vote-buying scam, considering the average monthly income in Argentina is $700 United States dollars. Story 76. It is very stupid. With that said, I hope we can help people, but I do not know how much it will help. Story 77. Just imagining a Democrat doing this makes me laugh at the Republicans who would start World War III. They're hypocrites. Story 78. A very reasonable decision by sensible politicians. Story 79. Amusing. It's the same old shit for America. The money is always going in the wrong direction. It has been that way for decades. Story 80. I do not know anything about international finance, but I do know what it is like to need a bailout after discovering Uber Eats. Stay strong, Argentina. Story 81. We have cancer biologists out of work because Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is purging the National Institutes of Health, the National Science Foundation, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and the Department of Health and Human Services. The best and the brightest are working in convenience stores because this government is hostile to anyone labeled woke, which apparently now describes all science. Yet, despite cuts to vital services under the guise of cost savings, we suddenly have additional funds equal to the National Institutes of Health budget to invest in this hemisphere's least stable economy. Story 82. My brain is too smooth to understand international finance. All I know is that, as an American, my current net worth is about $12 and a Costco card that expires next month. So I guess you could say I relate. Story 83. Look, I'm just trying to figure out whether I can afford guacamole on my Chipotle bowl. My personal finances are in crisis, and I am awaiting a bailout from the bank of mom and dad. Story 84. I just want that orange disgrace and every one of his little helpers in prison. I'm tired. Make him go away. Story 85. I cannot determine if there is any legitimate upside for the United States. I understand it is to boost Trump's ego, but even President Miller cannot benefit from this. $40 billion spent propping up a competitor to United States farmers, without a conflict of interest. Can someone explain the upside? Story 86. People should understand that the rationale of Trump is rare earth minerals and mining resources. It is the oil for freedom policy of Bush applied to an issue you have not paid enough attention to. Story 87. I feel this is absolute horse shit. On a side note, Miley I looks like Mr. Darcy from Pride and Prejudice, and thanks to Trump and our tax dollars he gets to keep his estate. Story 88. I have no idea what is going on, but if this means Malbec prices go down, I fully support it. If they go up, we riot at dawn. Story 89. There are 100 better things for us to spend our money on. I don't care enough about Argentina to want to give them anything. Plus, they are obviously horrible with money. Story 90. Anyone who thinks this is acceptable is a complete psycho. He has made this bailout contingent on them re-electing Mr. Chainsaw. That is literally blackmailing an entire country and rigging democracy. If you support democracy, you should be appalled. Story 91. My brother in Christ, I am still trying to process the price of eggs. My brain does not have the bandwidth for international bailouts. Story 92. Why are we bailing out a failed government of bad ideas? Austerity has never lifted a country up, and for Trump to promote it as a great idea is telling. Story 93. I want my money to stop going to other countries while children in my own country are starving in our streets. If Argentina can afford universal health care, they do not need my money. God, I have been angry at my government for so long. Story 94. I am very angry for many reasons. First, we desperately need the money. Farmers are going bankrupt and many government workers are going broke. Second, Argentina should not receive a bailout. Ukraine and Palestine should receive support, and 90% of United States citizens should receive assistance. Third, the bailout will not help Argentine citizens. It will be funneled back to United States-based billionaires. Story 95. A United States citizen said Argentina needs to turn its economy around. Buying Argentine debt is being seen as a poor decision. Story 96. These currency swaps happen frequently, but they are usually conducted by the Federal Reserve. This time they were done by the United States Department of the Treasury Exchange Stabilization Fund. The money is created out of thin air and converted into Argentine pesos. It is not United States tax dollars. It is money created by pressing a computer button. Story 97. This shows that Trump's intent has always been to help the rich. If the Republican Party allows subsidies under the Affordable Care Act to end, it should be a death knell for the party. America First has been shown to be a farce. The tariff strategy has been proven a loser. 1/3 of states are now in recession. The deficit is growing. Story 98. United States government spending is very similar to the spending habits of a 17-year-old who has just been paid. He is going to buy a video game and a new pair of shoes, but then borrows $30 from his mother for gas to get to work because he only gets paid once every 2 weeks. Story 99. What bailout? It's going straight into the pockets of corruption and then likely to the Zionist buddies of the ruling class. The president already said he isn't going to help the Terminal Children's Hospital or retirees. Story 100. It was not given to Argentina. It was given to Greasy Javier. Story 101. So much better to bail out Argentina, the home of exiled fascists, than to provide Americans with healthcare, education, student loan forgiveness, and grocery and drug price relief, or any number of other things that would help them. It is good that Argentina gets all that money while United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement receives new boots to put on our necks. Story 102. It seems dumb as hell. Things are bad and getting worse in the United States, and we are constantly told that there is not enough money to do anything that actually helps the American working class. However, there are billions to bail out some idiot anarcho-capitalist that American conservatives love. Story 103. I am furious because ordinary Argentinians are not going to receive any of it. Story 104. I would rather have Americans receive healthcare than help bail out the man who ruined the economy of Argentina by playing Trumpsito. Story 105. Argentina has a long history of poor fiscal management. It is a beautiful country with many resources. Ineptitude and corruption at the highest levels of government prevent it from prospering. Story 106. I think it is funny. Argentina elected a mouthy libertarian, and immediately their economy collapsed so badly that they had to ask for a bailout from a larger government. Story 107. As an American, I feel betrayed by my government every day for a new reason. Story 108. In isolation, it might be the correct policy. Isn't the United States best served by helping nations, especially those in our hemisphere, remain stable democracies? These funds may well serve that purpose. But nothing ever happens in isolation. At a time when the Make America Great Again movement insists there is plenty of money for billionaire tax cuts, arms for Israel and bailouts for Argentina, but none for healthcare subsidies, cancer research, or clean energy projects, the bailout is an absolute disgrace. Story 109. I think there is about to be a large surge of people withholding their taxes instead of using automatic withdrawals. Story 110. Laughing out loud, making Argentina great again and screwing all Americans except the billionaires. Story 111. I am Argentinian, and I don't know which bailout you were talking about. I honestly don't know anything about English or politics. I hate my country's politics and think my president should be mentally evaluated because he's fucking crazy. Story 112. The same thing they have been doing, bailing out billions, then trillions since the 1990s. Abolish the United States government. Story 113. He is buying goodwill in places he may need to run to when it all goes bad. Story 114. The money sent to Argentina was diverted to prominent Republican donors. It is essentially a large theft of public funds to pay beneficiaries. Argentina is not on Trump's radar. It is only receiving a cut of the billions through money laundering. Story 115. Fuckwits of a feather, corrupt assholes. Story 116. Oh, I forgot. The government is still shut down. I wonder how long this will continue. Story 117. It was done solely to prop up the delusional taxation is theft crowd. These are the people we should be shipping to El Salvador slave camps. Story 118. Let's see. How much did we pledge for Argentina? $20 billion and then another $20 billion, for a total of $40 billion. To put that in context, the entire budget of the United States Agency for International Development was $35 billion for 2024, and they destroyed it. Story 119. I could use a bailout. I cannot afford anything in this Republican economy. Story 120. I do not like it, but it does not really have anything to do with the shutdown. It was probably planned and signed months ago, Well, before there was any threat. Story 121. Complete bullshit. People are losing their jobs here, and groceries are astronomical. America first? As if. Story 122. Like most things Trump does, it feels like there is some hidden grift that sells out all Americans so he and his friends can become richer. I feel hopeless and helpless that no one will ever hold him or anyone else involved accountable. Story 123. I feel the man who ran on America first and gave our healthcare money to Argentina should be dismissed. Story 124. How is it even necessary? Over on the Austrian economic subreddit, all I hear is how great Argentina's economy has been doing under Javier Milei. Story 125. How is it even needed? Over on the Austrian economic subreddit, all I hear is how great Argentina's economy has been doing under Javier Milei. Story 126. You know this is only happening because Trump and his family probably have dirty business deals. Story 127. I thought we were no longer sending the tax money of United States citizens to foreign countries. I guess the unspoken clause was unless President Trump wants to. Story 128. I am not American, but I am not surprised. For someone who hates Latino people, Donald Trump sure does love acting like a Latin American populist despot. Story 129. The soybean farmers who mostly voted for this are now losing their farms to a company that JD has a large ownership stake in. It is a perfect circle of corruption and ignorance. They harmed themselves because of their racism, and now they are losing out because the people they trusted do not care. Story 130. It is a slap in the face to America. There are people here suffering because of the president's decisions, and he does not seem to care at all. Story 131. This is part of a very long-term plan. Our thoughts and opinions mean nothing now. Story 132. I think it is ironic that people on the right here complained about money going to Ukraine to fight Russia, yet they not only have no opinion about Argentina's bailout but do not even know it is happening. Story 133. It's infuriating because of all the cuts the United States suffered across the board in the interest of saving money, only to turn around and give it all to someone else. It's not even benefiting the average Argentinian, just some wealthy elites. We can't feed the less fortunate, keep them healthy, or provide opportunities for their future, but we can throw money around on vanity projects and bailouts for the rich. Story 134. As an Argentine who voted for Milei, I have mixed feelings. On one hand, we knew the road to recovery would need outside help, but seeing a bailout from the United States while they are dealing with their own government shutdown feels ironic. Still, if this keeps Argentina from collapsing again, it is a necessary move even if it stings a bit to admit. Story 135. What did the president of Argentina offer to put in Trump's bank account? A kickback of the money Trump is sending? Story 136. Every Ameritard comment. Argentina is Nazi now because 80 years ago some went there. Americans, you literally inspired Nazi racist theories and then gave them jobs. Story 137. It was a bailout for United States investment firms that had invested in Argentina and had lobbied strongly for it. They paid millions for those billions. I think it was a bad idea, and we should not have done it. Story 138. The shutdown is only partial, and the money to be used for this bailout does not come from the federal budget. Although frustrating, it is legal. Story 139. 42 million people across the United States will lose Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program benefits if the government shutdown continues in November. That is roughly 22 million families and 16 million children without money for food. Yet somehow Donald Trump can always find cash to bail out his far-right wannabe dictators. America first, right? Story 140. Big Beautiful Bill. America first. Damn, I didn't know Argentina came before America. Laughing my ass off. It's just a fucking dick-touching contest of corrupt, bankrupt, cowardly businesspeople bemoaning their failed companies and handing each other handouts through political means while rejoicing that average citizens are just gloating and blaming each other for their grievances, hate, and failures. Give me a non-racist, non-colorist, non-classist, non-misogynistic break. America. Story 141. There will likely be scrutiny about how effective it will be, whether it is going to be misused, or whether the benefits will reach ordinary people versus elites or connected sectors. Story 142. I'm honestly disgusted that we can't feed and house our own people, but we can send billions to Argentina and Israel. In addition, every member of the current administration is vile. Story 143. What I want to know is why Argentina? What does the country or the president offer Donald Trump that makes him so close to them? Story 144. Yes, it is unusual timing. Americans are frustrated, and Argentinians are divided. Some see hope, others expect more debt. Story 145. There is no reason to feel good about it. It was not for the citizens. It was to bail out corporate greed. The government's priorities are its own and those of greedy companies. Story 146. He is running America like a business, sadly like one of his casinos. Story 147. I feel like we are funding the president's private life. Americans have needs. We are broke, and this is our hard-earned money. Story 148. From a United States perspective, it can feel frustrating because domestic priorities may seem more urgent during a government shutdown. Sending aid abroad while services are paused at home can appear insensitive. For Argentinians, a bailout is likely seen as necessary support for the economy, though some may feel conflicted knowing it is tied to international conditions or that it comes from a country facing its own problems. Overall, this highlights the tension between domestic needs and global responsibilities. Story 149. Trump is clearly following Project 2025. During the shutdown, his first words were about consulting Russ Vought, who was assigned to the Office of Management and Budget. Trump said Vought would help him cut programs favored by liberals, possibly eliminating ones popular with Democrats. Effectively, he presented himself and Vought as leaders within Project 2025 who would punish Democrats by dismantling financial and educational opportunities they view as benefiting liberals. Supporters of Make America Great Again have yet to learn that they matter no more than a single vote, the bare minimum. This Trump show is about his Make America Great Again collective, which is based on forced persuasion and intimidation. His intent is to manufacture a broad coalition to impose his views as law rather than follow the Constitution. Make America Great Again runs on hate, and Trump has made himself the leader of a terrorist group. Story 150. The problem with libertarianism is that, eventually, you run out of the people's money. Story 151. The United States citizens I would be most curious to hear from are completely unaware of it, either because they only get news from Fox News, One American News, Truth Social, and Newsmax, or because they do not get news at all. You can be sure they all lose their minds over any report of even one non-Anglo person receiving support from the United States government. Somehow, even if they knew, I suspect they would be okay with it since their infernal messiah is the one doing it. Story 152. The Argentine people should face the consequences of electing Milei. No one will bail out the United States. Story 153. That is $117 for every man, woman, and child in the United States, and my family could really use that. Story 154. If my government has enough money to send to other countries, then it is taxing Americans too much. Story 155. I just love seeing the Randroid Musk worshippers trying to explain how the free market paradise under Milei needs a bailout. America first, except for Israel and the Argentines. Story 156. I think it proves that libertarian economic policies will result in failure and that Republicans do not give two fucks about spending money we do not have. America first, my ass. Story 157. Follow the money. This is hardly going to Argentina. A United States-based financier bought a lot of Argentina's debt for next to nothing. With this bailout, Argentina can pay that debt. Guess who makes a large amount of money off the cheap debt they bought? And guess who his friend is? Donald J. Trump. Story 158. It is a knife in the heart of any rational argument for the self-sustaining nature of conservative or libertarian economic policy. Story 159. It is not really a bailout in the sense of the United States cutting a check to Argentina. What is happening is a credit and currency swap agreement, basically a line of financing between the United States Department of the Treasury, private banks, and Argentina's central bank. It is meant to help stabilize Argentina's currency and debt payments, not to hand out money. The funds are loans and credit guarantees that must be repaid, not free aid. The word bailout makes it sound more dramatic than it actually is. I understand the frustration and hypocrisy. It is hard to justify extending international credit when we are in the middle of a shutdown in the United States. Story 160. As an American, the cell-phoning of Make America Great Again farmers is hilarious. Postscript. There is increasing evidence that they are all Nazis. Story 161. Oh, those Social Security checks. Since stopping them immediately would create massive pushback, they are undermining Social Security with a death by 1,000 paper cuts approach. Once all the other dictatorial moves are in place, Social Security does not stand a chance of survival. This is their whittling down period. Each day they are in office, you are further disenfranchised from your constitutional rights. This has been their plan all along. Story 162. This is awful. Why are we doing this? This government is not investing in our people. Instead, it gives handouts to other countries. It does not make sense. American workers are helping make Argentina great again. This is depressing. Story 163. Honestly, for governments with a GDP this large, $40 billion is not a huge amount. That said, $40 billion will buy a lot of school lunches, mental and physical health care, and at least 4 politicians and a Supreme Court justice. I am saying vote them out and reset the system. The corruption is high enough that other dictators are watching with curiosity to see what new things can be accomplished. Story 164. It's definitely illegal, but this Congress won't stop him. Story 165. How can I tell if someone is giving my grocery money to someone else? Take a guess. Story 166. We cannot afford single-payer healthcare, welfare, food stamps, housing for the homeless, mental health facilities, investments in infrastructure, replacement of lead water service pipes, public education, or assistance for our failing economy, yet we can afford to bail out others? It is fishy at best. In reality, it is fucking stupid. Story 167. 90% of those bailout funds will go to United States investors. The rest will be pocketed by the moron in charge. Story 168. American first, but bailing out libertarian Chicago school losers after they once again turn a South American economy into a disaster comes first. Story 169. More treason for the pile. There is no justice in America unless you are rich. Story 170. I love the shutdown. I hope it never ends. To me, it shows how useless the government is and that everything about it is just a prop. Story 171. Argentina was a haven for Nazis after the war, which is why information technology wants to help the country. Story 172. I care less about military spending worldwide, especially in Ukraine and Israel. Story 173. I do not see any reason to care. If they are not going to spend my tax money on me, then I do not give a fuck what they are spent on. Story 174. People need to stop being deceptive or gullible when they hear the word bailout. We bailed out the banks and made a tidy profit when the funds were repaid with interest. We conducted a currency swap with Argentina, and the act of doing so increased the value of the asset we bought. You can debate the decisions, but at least know what you are talking about first. Story 175. It is not a bailout. It is debt that will benefit the United States in the long term, as Argentina is unable to repay and interest payments grow. The old debt trap. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.